What if your divorce started well before the papers were signed and everything was made official? Some men, they yearn for connection, but have a problem with distrust or mistrust, while others move in a kind of push-pull dynamic that never brings certainty. Well, today's video, we're going to talk about that and more. We're going to talk about 4 different styles that you may find yourself in relationship patterns. And if that sounds good, stick around to the end, because we're going to talk about the 7-day course, an offering that if you're stuck in the fog of divorce, you can't just miss. So let's get back to the video. What kind of man are you? What kind of relationships patterns did you see in your relationship? Did you see any at all? Or are you the kind right now that have just pointed the finger? That's fine if that is the case. Many of us have been there, if not all of us. It's not where you'll stay though, and that's why you're here. So I'm happy that you're here. We've talked about some different styles and patterns that men have seen in divorce, and this is an attachment style. Attachment style is a popular style of attachment theory. It's stating that basically everything that we experience in love is the way that we've experienced love. Or better said yet, the way that we know love is the way that we experience love. And what does that mean? Well, it means simply the way that you were raised as a child, can have a lot to do, and possibly everything to do, with how you love as an adult. Something that I've covered before a couple times in my videos is that we may be adults, right? We reach this magical age where we become men with some undefined term, or some that do define the term in very bold ways. But there's a point, whether it's 18 or 21, that we're considered adults. Now, what actually happens in our life other than our birthday to make us adults? The simple fact is nothing. And here's the surprising fact is, like, it's not a biological thing. It's not like our brains stop developing, which happens around 25 years of age. So then what is it? Why do we suddenly become adults? Well, it's because we're told. At 18, we can vote, we can join the military, and at 21, we can drink. After that, there's pretty much no other restrictions on us for the rest of life until retirement. And that happens much later on, if you're even lucky to get there in the first place. So, bringing it back to the video, the way that we know love is the way that we experience love. There is no point in our life that differentiates, delineates, that makes it clear that we've become adults. What happens is we are always this ever-present youth in our head, this younger version of ourselves. It's kind of scary, it's kind of ironic too, that we see ourselves as these mature individuals, but we're really just humans, which are animals, and we don't really realize the impact of our childhood on our experience in this world. And so I'm just gonna throw that out there. I'd love to get your feelings on it. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. But my stance is our brains don't stop developing until about 25. There's no reason at 18 or at 21 that we're authorized and suddenly become adults. And if you quantify your manhood because you had relationships or relations with a woman, that's, I guess, your prerogative too. But that doesn't really define your mental maturity. So today's video is about defining your mental maturity and talking about your experience as a kid and how it impacts your relationships. You may be open to that information, you may be not. I'd imagine if you're this far into the video, you're interested at least, and that's good to see. So there's 4 different types of attachment styles, and these are all predicated off of your experience as a child. First one we'll talk about is an anxious attachment style. This is where you're always worried about someone going to leave. That's it's like a really uncomfortable space and a really uncomfortable feeling if you have that feeling before. And so I empathize with you. I think on some level I understand that. And we'll talk about what attachment style I was or identified as later on in the video after we recover the rest of them. But anxious is something I certainly understand. And that's no hit on my parents. There's another thing too is like, while you're developing this understanding of yourself, this is no attack on your parents. This isn't to say they didn't do a good job. They didn't do the best they had with the tools that they had. This is simply saying like, this is the experience that you had. Here's another fun fact too. You can ask your brothers and your sisters if you have them, and or sisters and or brothers. You can ask them if they had the same experiences as you did as a child. Here's the wild thing. It's probably not the case. You can talk about birth order here. You can talk about periods of time. A lot of this could be because your parents have experience. A lot of this could be financial means. Maybe they've changed in the period of time that you were born or your brothers or sisters were born. And it's quite amazing to consider that growing up in the same house doesn't qualify you for the same childhood. It can also help arguments, right? If there's arguments you're having with your brothers and sisters about how you were raised or what your parents said and thought, is a really good lens to look at those situations to say, okay, well, that wasn't my experience, but I respect yours, and let's move forward. Talking about moving forward, let's get back to the attachment styles. We talked about the anxious one, and that's where there's always this underlying fear of somebody going to leave. The anxious attachment style can be a really challenging space to be. Some anxious attachments push and pull the dynamic, almost always testing, will this person leave? Do they actually love me? Will they stay? Again, all this is dependent on the level of anxiousness or the anxious attachment that is experienced with the person. Could be subtle, could be aggressive. Who knows? And again, this is nothing negative to say about the person. This journey that we're on, we all have had experiences in this realm of wanting, of desire, of not needing, not having enough, not feeling like they're enough, right? The scarcity mindset is something that's ingrained into us as humans because our brain wants to survive. So moving on from an anxious attachment style, we're going to talk about the next one, which is the avoidant attachment style. This is where people act fine, but they move on fast. But deep down, there's a pain. It may look like everything is okay, but inside there's deep dissatisfaction. There's deep pain that's there. So avoidant is something where someone could just shut down as far as an attachment style. They stop engaging. They don't want to talk about it anymore. Now, some of this could be that they need to process what's going on in the relationship or an argument or a challenging situation. Some of this could be just a technique. You know, some people that are avoidant take the perspective or the lens that in time, everything will fix itself. What they're really saying is they're not confident in their ability. Well, how's this? I won't be so definitive. Some people are saying when they do that, they're not confident in their ability to navigate a challenging conversation or to voice their feelings without potentially disrupting the status quo, you could say. So avoidant people can be really challenging for an anxious person because there's always this anxious person that wants to talk things out, that wants to work things out, that wants to find a resolution. And then there's the avoidant person that doesn't want to talk things out, that doesn't want to find a resolution because they're fearful of the impact, the negative impact that could have. Here's the ironic thing. Anxious people and avoidant people often pair up together. Now, that could be a lot of things. Some people say that they've seen that in their parents, right? This push-pull dynamic. Maybe mom was avoidant, maybe dad was anxious, or vice versa. And there's a commonality there. Again, going back to the beginning of the video, we know love the way that we experience love. And so it's this perpetuating cycle. You've probably heard of generational trauma, generational curses. That's what this is all about. It's because that's what we know. And it sounds wild, but you'll be attracted to these people because that's what you know. That's what you've experienced. So that's enough on the avoidant. It's also a nice touch on how anxious and avoidant connect together. Let's talk about the secure attachment style. The secure attachment style is where balance is good on paper, where everything is healthy. Secure attachment style is kind of what we're moving forward. It's realizing your maybe proclivity, your natural tendency to end up in one space, say avoidant, and how you've taken the steps to recognize that you're an avoidant person. You've also taken the steps to be mindful of the fact that your partner is not comfortable with you being avoidant. So you sit down and you re-engage. You find ways to be reassured in your avoidancy that everything's going to be fine, and you're also given space too. So it's a secure attachment style is the ability to recognize your attachment style and to do the work necessary to move past that attachment style and move into a place of understanding your partner's attachment style, understanding the people that you engage with, their attachment style, and how that impacts not only them, but your communication and your interactions with them. The secure attachment style is exactly like it sounds. It's secure, it's healthy, it's where we all should be shooting for. Now, in divorce, secure attachment styles can easily be pressured, and they can crack, and they can move towards anxiousness or avoidancy depending on the situation. You actually might be secure your whole life in your attachment style. Divorce happens and it can push you into anxious or an avoidant attachment style. So that's secure, that's where we're all working towards. And it's always good to have something that we're working towards. All right, so that brings us to the last attachment style. We just talked about secure attachment style. We're going to talk about the disorganized attachment style. Disorganized attachment style is exactly, again, like it seems. These attachment styles are named really well. Disorganized is the combination, you could say almost, of the avoidant and the anxious. And they find that the disorganized attachment style is very common, as at times there will be things that makes us feel anxious and there's things that makes us want to avoid, right? It's the combination of the two. It's a push-pull dynamic, but also the strong yearning for attachment, a connection, a bond. And so it can be a really challenging spot because you're possibly like really confusing a partner, especially a partner if they're secure. They're going to be confused by that dynamic. So we talked about at the end of the video that I would identify what my attachment style was when I was going through divorce. And I would certainly say that I was disorganized. There was times I was avoidant. There was times that I was anxious. And it did create a push-pull dynamic inside me that I didn't like. And so that's the powerful thing about divorce, is it gives you this opportunity to evaluate yourself. It gives you time and space to really think about things. So when we don't try to numb the pain of divorce with, well, the common things that anyone numbs themselves with the pain of divorce, can be a really powerful space to just get to know yourself better. And that's what this channel is all about. Getting to know yourself better, getting to know everything, like your strengths and your weaknesses. Because when you know those, the world is your oyster, and you can shuck it any way you want. You can become the man that you've always wanted to be. So knowing your attachment style, whether you're anxious or you're avoidant, secure or disorganized, it'll teach you more about exactly who you are, your childhood, your parenting styles, and here's the powerful spot. It will give you the ability to overcome all those things and become who you've always known you are and you always wanted to be.